Buzzing into the booth with me, Axolile in Notywala, who is the Premier candidate for Mzansi in this province. Thank you so much for popping in. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
It's been a very long night, I know, day and night, and still another day and night, or a couple of them to come. How are things looking for Mzansi right now?
So we're still watching. We're still looking at the numbers. They're trickling in. We're particularly interested in seeing the metros and the urban turnout, because that's where a huge part of our focus has been with our limited resources. But we started at zero, and so we've got numbers moving, and that's a good start.
As you say, starting from a base of zero, the only way is up. How about the process of the election itself? Yesterday, your party agents would have been present at many voting centres, taking part in that process. How do you feel about how the election ran yesterday?
It wasn't an easy process for many people, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out and those that stood for much longer in the queues. There were challenges, there were hiccups here and there. People stood in the dark, particularly in places such as Kailicha, where there's no proper lighting, but people still stood there and waited for their chance to vote. There were voting stations that had fewer people. There were voting stations that had more people, and so it's difficult to tell now in terms of the voter turnout, and we're hoping to see. But there were also people that weren't able to vote, and those are things I think that are going to be very important to look into in terms of what were the main challenges, particularly with the IEC and the voting stations.
The other challenge is those who didn't bother to vote at all, who deliberately chose not to vote at all. I had a conversation with somebody this morning when I bumped into her, and I said, how did your vote go yesterday? She said, didn't go. And I said, why not? She said, tired of empty promises, there was nobody to vote for. What concerned me is that she then went on to say that her 22-year-old daughter also chose not to go and vote. There is an element of, some would call it apathy, some would call it outright cynicism of people who've lost faith in the process itself. And being able to capture those people and incite hope in them is a potential game changer going forward. How do you feel about those who made the decision not to vote at all?
It's sad, but it's understandable, because many of the people that we spoke to have lost hope and had lost hope in the political process. And this is why we had continued to say it must not just be about elections. It cannot be just about 2024. We have to know what happens today on the 30th and going forward. That's why we need to get as many people to participate, not just on putting an X, but to participate within this 5-year period. That's how people are going to get interested in politics. If we create enough spaces, particularly for young people, go to where young people are, get them to engage, not just in voting. The more they get engaged, the more they are interested in the party political system, and then they will vote in the next 5 years. And that's the mission that we have set up for Mzansi, to say it's not just about this election, it is a generational mission, but it is important what happens between the 5 years as well.
Well, good luck to you and your team, whatever role you'll play in that process. And obviously very early days yet. Mzansi hoping that particularly the big metro and urban areas will see their figure bumped up. I think it's at 0.42% in the Western Cape so far, but only 30% of the districts declared. And the big white gap on the map is the Cape metro area and surrounds. So that picture could change dramatically in the coming hours. Thank you so much, Axolile in Notywala, who's the Premier candidate for Mzansi in the Western Cape.